As you leave today, when you exit the door down off the ship, next to the museum, there's actually a replica of a 32-pound carronade, if you want to look out for that. And then if you've been in front of the dry dock, there's also a 24-pound long gun. That replicas of those, so keep your eyes open for those if you want to see them. Questions that I get a lot while we are on the gun deck are, what are these stanchions for? They are just temporary. As you can see, they fall easily. They're temporary because we are in dry dock. We have a lot of pressure points that are being pushed on the bottom of the hull that normally wouldn't be there, seeing as how we would be in water. So to make sure that all of the weight is distributed evenly throughout the decks, we do have these stanchions throughout all the decks just while we're in dry dock. When we are not in dry dock, all of these are down. It's much more spacious, open for all the guns to be able to be viewed and handled. We do have a gun that is able to be fired. It is not fired like it used to be back then. It's just a more modern mechanism. It's fired at 8 o'clock every morning and at sunset. So if you do want to see that, if you stick around till sunset at the end of the pier over next to us, we do fire that gun. Next thing that I hear a lot, if y'all have viewed the very forward end of this deck, you saw a big black oven looking thing. So that is the oven. It's called the caboose. That's where they would do all of their cooking for the meals. They would cook right there, and then men would take their food down to the deck below, which is the berth deck, and actually eat it picnic style on the ground down there. When they weren't eating on the berth deck, they were sleeping on the berth deck. Berthing, sleeping. They would have hammocks that they would hang up 3 high from boca to boca, or point to point, and actually sleep in their hammocks. They only slept in hours of 4 hours at a time, in shifts of 4 hours at a time. So if you like getting very little sleep, join the Navy. I've dealt with it. We don't do 4 hours anymore, but back then they did. We still have very short hours of sleep. But they would do sleeping, eating, all that stuff down the berth deck. One deck below that is the orlop deck. That's where the surgeon's cockpit is located. That's where the surgeon would do any of his medical things that he would have to do, such as if a man got caught under a gun, how to amputate his leg, arm, that kind of thing. That is where it would be done. It's down at the lowest point of the ship because that is below the waterline. It's going to be the safest and most stable part of the ship. What else is down there is the orlop section of it, which is where we would keep all of our goods, barrels of water, food, that kind of thing, storage. It would be very dark and not many people would go down there. Be very constricted as to who could go down there because you didn't want other sailors stealing food or water or anything like that. Last 2 things about this deck. You do see a large circular shiny looking thing in the middle. That's the capstan. That's the anchor capstan. So the ladders actually would not be there, and if there were ladders, it would be rope ladders that they could lower and then rise up again, so that you could put these wooden things inside those slots and spin that entire thing around like they do in Pirates of the Caribbean. They would spin that around and it would raise up the anchor from the front of the ship, the anchor chain. So that is the anchor capstan, and then at the very rear, you cannot go in there, but you can peek inside there. That is the captain's cabin, so that's where the captain would have his quarters. He would sleep, he would dine, he would do all of his work in there. It's the nicest part of the ship because it's the captain's, but it isn't there. If I have any other questions, feel free to ask me. I am wrapping up the tour because we do have to exit the ship in about 5 minutes. So if you take your final questions and ask your final pictures as we exit, that would be great. Thank you so much and have a fine Navy Day.
Well, as you get on in years, of course, the expectation would be that for a male, the strength would increase, and you'd be participating more and more in things that the men are expected to be doing here, farming and fishing and hunting. And when you reach the age of 16, then you will be serving in the militia.
Okay.
And you will be doing so until you're to the age of 60. Assuming, of course, you're able to. No, those years are very useful. The young women as well, learning the ways of housewifery. So as you get on in years and you have your wit and your strength and ability to pay attention and follow instruction, you'll be learning the ways of your parents. So, like I said, you could be going out at that age fishing.
People that you visit.
Out into the bay or just on the river? Or
both, wherever your father might be. And if you've lost your father, the chances are that you will have either someone within your family or somebody in your congregation that will see to your training and learning. People are needed to be working in whatever capacity they're able. So you won't let a young person just wander off. They have to be learning the ways of this place.
Was there some type of a school or?
There's no formal school here. It's more by family.
Okay.
For learning to read. If you can write, you will teach those things, of course. Then in this place it's unusual because it's not like back in a civilized place where you would have a formal system where you would serve as an apprentice, say, to somebody. There are people here with many skills and many trades, like Master Bradford, for instance, and who lives here. He was a weaver by trade. In Holland, it's not something he had done before leaving England, essentially fleeing England to go to Holland. He lived in the area of farm country, really. Before being in Leiden, but now he was trained and functioned as a weaver. Master Allerton as a tailor. There are men here, hat makers. Master Brewster across the way. He was teaching students there is a great university in Leiden, one of the greatest in the world. He was teaching some of those students English, using Latin as a bridge. So let's say they're from the German states, but wanted to learn English.
So
he would teach them by the commonality of Latin. Also got involved in publishing some books towards the end of his time there. So people doing a variety of things, but in coming here, you transform once again, and whatever you had been doing, you put it behind you for the moment, because you might return to that in time, but whilst we're under contract with the investors, you're trying to survive here, you're farming, you're fishing, you're readying things to go back to England to be sold. Salted fish and timbers and furs, and whatever you can gather and pack and send back, that will fetch a price.
So the more help, the better, huh?
Exactly. It's not a place for anyone to be a layabout or slug about. It's all very physical in nature, being here.
But from what time in the morning to evening did you say they would work?
It really depends the time of year, and in your family. I have young children, so I'm rising. If you have children, you know whenever they do. So it all depends. Now the harvest is in, so you're not going out into your fields for that. As it gets cold, you're preparing essentially for winter now. You should have most of your stores in place for food stores and such. But now in the winter, when it gets very cold and the snow, I hear it can get very high. I've only been here one winter, so this last one wasn't so terrible. But then you'll be repairing things. You're always mending your things as whether it's clothing or whatever, but the men will work in to repair some things and when they can't be out of doors easily.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, of course.
Many of them, the boys even start going out with the men. As they say, once a lad be breeched. Once he's wearing breeches.
Okay.
6 or 7 years old. Until he's breached, he's going to be wearing a gown so you can clean his bum more better. Once he knows how to take care of himself and you get breeches on him, he's to start going with the men as much as possible. Now, there's some days he'll stay with the women and children. But many says a boy should begin at the age of breaching to consider himself a young man and to start to take up man's labours.
Okay.
So he'd be going in, and by the age of 13, many of them, they're now learning to fire muskets, taking training with weapons. In case there should be any harm,
Okay.
these lads will stand with the rest of us, though Captain Standish says he will not see them properly set into the militia till they turn 16.
16.
Yeah. But 13, there's a lot of them already beginning to take up some of the skills that they will use when they are to be made soldiers.
And in
But farming, fishing, at this season we go hunting, carry my musket, boy. It gets heavy after a while.
Sure.
And learn them to shoot. It is found that some of our boys, 15, 16, 18-year-old, is better with musketry than their fathers. Some says we're too old. Us men that never had a musket in our hand till we come here.
Yeah.
Most
okay.
of the men that come to Plymouth had never owned a gun.
No
A few
need.
had a sword. But, to own a gun in England, that's quite an unusual thing. So it's mainly the simple labours of husbandry, farming, fishing, hunting, tending cattle some, and trading with the Indians.
Trading.
Yeah. But in the
Anything-
matter of religion that we've been speaking of,
Yeah, that was
this
the-
is also the age where John Robinson says, as the young come to an age of understanding and an age of reason, they should begin to consider the call of God to enter into covenant with the rest of the congregation. And it's not that you do it because your parents said so.
It's because you want
It's
to.
because you feel that call. And you should not be hasty in it. For some, it might come even before the age of 10. There are some that has an uncommon gift in that way. If they start talking about it when they're 6 and 7, patience.
Yeah.
But you listen, and it might be there's someone of such a gift. And that's again where the elders and deacons have responsibility to seek guidance in these matters of the calling of the church. The other thing that they make much of is congregational discipline. Not only do they require you to stand and speak of your faith, to enter into covenant with the congregation, they then, once you are made member, require you to look as a fellow Christian on all with whom you have covenant, and to look upon them with love and care. And if you see them in any way beginning to, as some might say,
Take a
walk
different-
astray, you go quick. What is this? How are you? Talk with them. And if their answers do not please you well, you speak to some others. Let us go and speak to this one. And again,
Help
if there
them
is some resistance unto what seems good counsel, Robinson, in his many writings, they say one of the most common passages that he will cite over and over again, tell it to the church. And Robinson says in several places, the Catholics do not write in their confessing because they do it in secret to the priest. It don't say tell it to the priest. It says tell it to the church. The Protestants, says Robinson, do no better in saying because the Catholics do it wrong, we ain't going to do it at all. Or, Robinson says, which ain't any better, we're all going to do it the same. And we will have a general confession. We all confess together. This, and this. We done it. Oh, sorry. That ain't a confession.
No.
And this, he says, is the call of God to a proper Christian faith. That we must keep covenant together. And that means sharing these responsibilities. We do, amongst us, choose elders and deacons. Robinson says, and this again is words I never heard in England. Did you ever hear the word democratical?
We've heard it.
I think it's from ancient Greek.
Yeah.
And of course those Greeks had a lot of strange and silly
Words.
notions about all being equal, which no, everyone knows. We have all our different gifts, and God sets us in rank. Some are of high and some of low rank. That's the way it's supposed to be. But in the matter of the church, Robinson says it is what he calls aristocratical. and that the elders and the deacons are elected for life. You don't elect them and then, I don't like what you just said, well, let's vote you out. It ain't like that. Unless the congregation decides that the elder or the deacon has committed some sin, some work against the good keeping of their congregation, they are to be followed. They are to be looked to as parents and fathers and mothers are. And there is to be that kind of discipline. And yet, says Robinson, as elders and deacons, they are to encourage the exercise of prophecy that I was speaking of before, that every week those who are growing up and who have a gift as Christians should be encouraged to share their gift with others. Some will have a greater gift and should be encouraged more. Some, they have a kind of gift and once in a while a little, but don't press them too far beyond their abilities. But that's the duty of the elders and deacons, to find them and help them. And as Robinson says, this prophecy is in Scripture. He says it is not only a thing needful, it is necessary for the reforming of our churches. And without it, the churches cannot grow in the light of the congregation. It cannot come from the elders and deacons downward. It's got to come from the people. And by the exercise of prophecy, the people and the elders and deacons get to see the gifts of those amongst them, and that will lead them who have a gift to become elders and deacons themselves.
Well,
that's the teachings
that's
of John
good.
Robinson, quite contrary to the Church of England in so many a way.
Yeah.
And that's why as some of us come here,
Makes more sense.
yes,
It's
some
very
of us
common.
arriving here at first, what? No Christmas? No Easter? No holidays? I don't like it here. But if you just listen a little,
It
what
helps.
Brewster says and what the deacon and then Edward Winslow, he's one who does prophesy quite regular, a gentleman's son,
Yeah.
a man of unusual learning, knows Latin and French. You know, he's a gentleman's son. We listen much to Edward Winslow, but there's other men as well that their voice is much respected, and they might not speak but a few times a year in the church, but when they speak, people listen.
People listen. Oh, that's very
Well, I'm
good.
glad
Thank
I had a
you
chance
very
to speak
much.
with you upon
We
these matters.